Now, there can be numerous reasons for someone in Illinois to have their wages garnished. But do you have any options to stop it? Well, unfortunately, depending on your situation, sometimes having your wages garnished could put you in a financial hardship. For example, let's say someone makes the minimum wage here for Illinois, and it's $12 an hour. And now they're having their wages garnished for $25,000 unpaid debt. Now they're finding themselves having to potentially consider filing bankruptcy. And so I want to help you understand your options. And so with all of that to say, that's what we're going to cover in today's video. Welcome to Ascent Finance's YouTube channel, where we cover wage garnishment in Illinois and help folks understand their options to resolve it. Now, with all that to say, everyone's situation is unique, and we get that. And so we built a free Illinois wage garnishment calculator to help folks see what their options are to stop it, compare the pros and cons to each option, estimate the cost based on their personalized data. My name's Justin, and I am one of the analysts here at Ascend. I speak with quite a few folks who are unfortunately facing a garnishment. And so I'd love to help you understand the process and what your options are. So in today's video, I'm gonna go through a few different things. First, I want to touch on your options to stop the garnishment. Then I'm going to go through Illinois' wage garnishment laws, then wage garnishment process in Illinois. And then I want to help you understand, the different steps to finding out who may be garnishing your wages. Sometimes you're not aware who's garnishing your wages. You don't know who to call, so I can help you understand how to get that. And then finally, which option should you do? So before I dive into the different ways to stop a garnishment in Illinois, I did want to say that if this video ends up being helpful, feel free to leave a like. It's definitely encouraging for us to see, as well as if you'd like to see more videos like this covering wage garnishment and the options to resolve debt in Illinois, feel free to subscribe, as we definitely are trying to put new videos out weekly. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. So we understand that you may be feeling overwhelmed. And one of the most important things to understand is how to stop a garnishment, right? And how to stop it, because it can be debilitating. And so we built actually a Illinois wage garnishment calculator to help you understand a couple of things. One, how much you may be garnished. And so let's say you were informed that you may be getting a garnishment coming soon. We want to help you understand what that could look like and whether you may need to start looking at options. Or if you're currently being garnished, we want to help you determine whether that's the correct amount. And then finally, it should help you see what the options are you may have to stop a garnishment there in Illinois. Now, when it comes to stopping a garnishment, there are unfortunately a limited number of options, as the court at this point has already issued an order for an unpaid debt. However, there are options, so let's dive in to those. So one option to stop a garnishment is filing a bankruptcy. There is the liquidation bankruptcy, known as Chapter 7, which can provide immediate relief from a garnishment and other unsecured debt. In order to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Illinois, though, you need to pass the Chapter 7 means test. So there are income requirements based on your household size there in Illinois. So I will show on screen now what the income requirements currently are for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Illinois. So you can see, based on the number of people in the household, how that reflects to the increase of the income. Now, there are multiple parts to the means test. So what I would say here is, if you are above the threshold, I would either check to make sure that these are up-to-date figures, or easy enough, we built a free Chapter 7 calculator that has the most up-to-date figures for the means test, as well as it will estimate whether you qualify and what the cost will look like. So the idea behind the calculator is that it will estimate whether you're able to qualify for Chapter 7 and what the cost looks like based on your zip code and your personalized data. We want to make sure you can do this without any friction, and so you don't even need to put an email address in to see your results. Now, you can if you want us to reach out, but if you don't, that's totally fine. Now, moving forward, the Chapter 7 filing fee in Illinois is $338. But you may actually be entitled to have it waived if you're under the fee poverty guidelines. And so that's what I'm going to put on the screen as well here. It'll help you understand what the guideline is and whether you may be able to have the fee waived based on the household size and all the above. And so if you are under it, based on your household size, you may be able to get the filing fee waived. Now, let's say bankruptcy is not something you want to pursue, or it doesn't make sense to file. Either way, you want to try another option first, right? And so what you could do is maybe see if you can file an exemption through the court. Now, this is something where you can reach out to the local courthouse and ask and see if you may be eligible for any exemptions. So for example, what that could look like is you may be able to file a head of household exemption, which may actually be able to limit how much they're able to withhold from each paycheck. And so it doesn't make it as debilitating. Now, in Illinois, there should be a limit on how much they're able to garnish. And so now I want to touch on what the Illinois wage garnishment laws look like. Now, depending on the state, most times it's generally just based on disposable earnings. But here is kind of what the wage garnishment amount in Illinois looks like. So the amount of wages that may be deducted is limited by federal and Illinois law. So under Illinois law, the amount of wages that may be deducted is limited to the lesser of 1, 15% of gross weekly wages, or the amount by which disposable earnings for a week exceed the total of 45 times the federal minimum hourly wage, or under a wage deduction summons. Now, I will add the rest of the law in the description here so you can kind of get an idea of it, and it's also in an article, but that's for the most part what it looks like. Now that we've covered the wage garnishment laws in Illinois, I want to help you understand the steps and the process behind it. Now, when it comes to a wage garnishment, the actual process of it really depends on the type of debt actually being collected, as there's actually potentially specific procedures for garnishing someone's wages for, child support or spousal support, to compare to maybe like credit card debt. So with that all said though, the process is generally similar across the board for collecting unpaid unsecured debt. So let's kind of get into what the process looks like for reaching at, a wage garnishment for something like that. Now, the first thing they're going to have to do is most likely obtain a judgment against you. And so wage garnishments don't happen overnight, right? And so fortunately, there are checks and balances put in place to protect both the debtor and the creditor from doing anything with ill intent. So if you are facing a garnishment from, let's say, the federal government, maybe for like an unpaid student debt, the process may look a bit different, as they may not need to actually have a court order to withhold your earnings, but nevertheless, let's focus on, regular traditional unsecured debt. So the first step to obtaining a judgment is through a debt collection lawsuit. So the creditor will need to properly serve you for any unpaid unsecured debt. So that's going to probably include credit cards, medical bills, and personal loans, payday loans, of course, and things of that nature. So once you've received the summons, you should see a few things. First, the facts of the case, right? And so you should see a summary of the law, the description of the debt, and the exact amount that you owe. And so most times you should actually have about 30 days to respond, but it should state what that is on the summons. Now, let's say, the creditor has enough documentation provide sufficient proof, right? And so they have enough proof that you owe the debt. The court now may issue a default judgment. So with the judgment though, the creditor now has the choice to whether they want to pursue further legal action by maybe requesting a wage garnishment order. So that is the next step here in the process, is actually obtaining a wage garnishment order. So now that we've actually touched on what it looks like to obtain a judgment, I want to kind of go through what the next step of it looks like and kind of what it looks like to obtain a wage garnishment order. So as I just alluded to, with the judgment, the creditor is now able to potentially request a wage garnishment order. So here's what that looks like. The first thing is the creditor is going to request a writ of execution from the court. The next thing is there's going to be a garnishment packet served to your employer. Now, once the employer has received the garnishment packet, you may actually start to see your wages being garnished, probably, in the first paycheck you've received 10 days after the service. So once your employer has received the garnishment packet, you may actually start to see your wages being garnished in the first paycheck you receive. That's about 10 days after the date of being served. And so your employer may need to provide you with a copy of the garnishment order. And so you should be able to challenge this order, but you may only have around 10 days to ask for any potential exemptions. Now, sometimes folks are not even aware that they are being garnished, who's garnishing, or what the balance is for, and for many, many reasons, unfortunately. So before I go too much further, I want to help you figure out where to go if you either don't know who's garnished your wages or you're not sure the balance they're garnishing you for. I've actually spoken with more and more folks who have unfortunately been caught off guard by a recent garnishment from their wages. Most times they're first hearing about it from being notified by their employer, or they just noticed a portion of their paycheck was being taken out. And so if you do fall into this category, I want to help you understand a few simple steps that may help you actually answer those questions and get a little bit more understanding. Of course, if you already know who's garnishing your wages and the total balance, feel free to skip to the next part here, more covering your options to resolve it as well that I touched on earlier. But if you don't know who's garnishing your wages or what the balance is, here are some steps to take if you need more information. So one step could be, it's depending on everyone's situation, but one step could be reaching out to payroll and seeing if they have any information on who submitted the garnishment order. Most likely them or someone within your employer has information or the documents that they were served. Now, once you know who is garnishing your wages, you should be able to call them directly to get the information on the balance. So once you have an idea of the law firm that's handling the account, you could potentially reach out to them and get an idea of the balance, when it started, how much they want, if there's any offers to resolve. Or if that doesn't work for any reason, you could potentially reach out to the courthouse and see if they're able to look up your case. If you call the local courthouse, they may have the case information regarding the judgment and the garnishment issued. Of course, there's no promises on any of these, but those could be options to explore. Now, if both of those options don't work, you may be able to check your credit report and see if there's any outstanding debts that it may be in relation to. So if you have a medical bill from 4 years ago that is in collections and you haven't paid on it and your wages are being garnished and you look in the credit report and you see there's a medical bill in collections, well, it could be that, but those are things to check out. Now, the multiple question here is which options should you do? Now, with all that to say, ultimately it's up to you. However, I would encourage you to take our wage garnishment calculator, as that'll help you compare your options, the cost, the pros and cons to handling a potential garnishment. As I do understand that it can be overwhelming, you're always welcome to give us a call or text at 833-272-3631, and we'd be happy to chat through your situation. I do hope that this video was helpful, but if you do have any questions at all, feel free to leave a comment down below, as I am sure there are others with a similar question. We will do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. However, thanks so much for watching, and I'm always here if you have any questions.